All right, guys, we are back. Jack Hanks, Because Experience Matters podcast, season 3. And we are just having our second guest in our beautiful, luxurious downtown Denver studio. We just moved in and we decided to start doing this stuff again. And Chad, I'm excited to have you here. Thanks for coming into Denver to do this. I know you have other claims, but welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a lot of engineering questions, man, and a lot of frustrations regarding your industry in general. Not from you personally, but from the other side more in general. But we'll get to that. Man, so this engineering stuff, so every claim we have engineers from the other side on. And it's super frustrating because I guess, so you have a degree in engineering.
I have a bachelor's of science in civil engineering, yes.
Where'd you go?
University of Oklahoma.
Really? Go Sooners.
Yes. My BS is areas of study were structural and geotech.
Okay. So that leads to another question. So when you got your degree and your stamp, so is there something to do after you got your degree to get your stamp?
Yeah. So when you go to an engineering school, you have your BS program.
Okay.
And then when you complete that, you take the fundamentals of engineering exam called the FE. When you pass that, you become what's an EI or an EIT, depending on the state. Okay. Then you do a 4-year to 5-year supervised practicum.
Oh.
When I did it, we had to take the PNP exam, professional practice exam, at the end of the 5 years. Now you can take it at different points in the cycle, but you can't become licensed until you complete your 5-year practicum and you pass the second exam.
Interesting.
So it's about a 10-year process from starting engineering school to becoming licensed.
Wow, that's actually good, right? I think.
Yes.
I think that's like, I mean, attorneys going to law school and having to take the bar. And I think our industry, the PA side, is horrible with that because literally we can go take a test to do $10 million claims. So we should probably take a page out of the engineering book and have some sort of apprenticeships or something like that. So another question, was there stuff to study in how did you get into the wind and hail portion? Because there's not like a course for that, right? Or it's part of the forensic engineering thing, or how did that become your go-to?
So when I graduated, I was in the military. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I wound up not being able to stay because I got hurt. Then I went into design for several years. Then I went to operational support engineering for the U.S. government.
Oh, wow.
And so I was doing forensic engineering without knowing the name. It's part of what I was doing for the U.S. government. And then 2011, I left and went into forensics full time.
Okay.
And so when I did that, I already had the exposure because I'm from Oklahoma, and our state,
right.
our state's
Welcome to Tornado Alley, bro.
Yeah, our state's constantly trying to kill us, whether it's water, hail, wind, fire, tornadoes.
And thank God,
whatever,
by the way. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we were familiar with the weather, and so when I went into it, I kind of came in with that advantage because I had grown up around, watching what happens. And we went into forensics. I started studying it, and I started really going, okay, where does damage begin? How does damage begin? What is the threshold? What is the process that damage occurs in?
Okay.
And so then that's why I really started studying that. And I very quickly decided to go beyond what I was taught and started really studying it and researching it on my own.
Okay.
And starting to get a better and more comprehensive understanding, which is what made me really good at what I do. And so I worked for one firm for a number of years. I left that firm in 2015, worked for another firm primarily until 2019. And then in 2019, I started Valor.
Okay, cool. So this is your passion, man.
Yes.
That's cool because it is a different gig, right? It's not like, and the frustration we see too, we have engineers coming from the carrier and they're like, well, I'm an electrical engineer, I'm a structural engineer, and that's cool, and that's awesome. However, can you tell me if the winds at 97 miles an hour affected the building? That's the nitty gritty of this stuff, bro.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. And one of the things I will draw attention to is there's an organization called the National Academy of Forensic Engineers. And it's an organization that I hold in very high regard. I've learned a heck of a lot by being a member of the Academy. I'm also a board certified diplomat through the Academy, through the processes that they have. I learn a lot more about how to do forensic engineering, how to do the things that I need to do by attending the meetings with the Academy. And it's a great opportunity and great experience, and something I encourage engineers in our industry to actually become part of and to do. But unfortunately, very, very few of them do. We probably have 75 to 100 that go to one of the meetings that we have twice a year. But, there's a lot more of us in this practice than attend those meetings. But it'd be great for them to be able to see it. It also helps them get outside of that echo chamber. Because if you're taught something in one thing and everything you get is just that, you don't always get that broader perspective. But when you can be in a room with people that have different experience and that broader experience, you can see and understand where they're coming from. And maybe it refine your own views to understand what's going on.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I've never thought of it. So when I think about forensic engineering, I think about science. X plus Y equals Z, right? But that's really not what you're saying. Is you rely on experiences and so you're not making stuff up, right? But you're relying on information, data. But you have, it's not just about a math equation. Correct?
No, it's adding up the totality of physical conditions. It's a lot more of a comprehensive approach, and it's a little bit different because a lot of people go, there is one answer. 4 plus 3 is 7. Well, when you're dealing with a lot of things in forensic engineering, you have a ton of factors coming in, and you're weighing a lot of those factors, and you're looking at what is the totality of information that's going into play. And so it's not going to be a simple run equation A, B, C.
Interesting. So I never thought about that. So here we go, right? Here we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. So when our company refers you in, which we do a lot, and you do great work, by the way, thank you for that. We want the God's honest bottom line answer, because what I don't want to do for our insureds is set them down a shitty claim road, or I don't want to take the claim if it's bad, or I don't want to waste your time or our money or the number one. And also, I don't want to waste the insurance company's time. If it's not a real claim and there's no viable way of getting it done within the policy guidelines, endorsements, it's not real. There's nothing wrong with saying no. So my point is, how are these? We get these reports, and I guess so. If they are opinion-based reports, then
at the end of the day, someone is making a judgment, making a decision about what is going on based on the totality of what they have, their experience, their knowledge. They're rendering that opinion.
Interesting. So that's the reason when we see certain reports from certain vendors on the carrier side, they're very vague and very, I'm going to say, borderline inaccurate, because that's their experience.
The experience that an engineer has will influence greatly where they come to. And if you don't have the experience of having done a lot of your own research, a lot of your own getting outside of the sandbox that you're in, you can become very compartmentalized and not really see and understand what's going on. We're seeing some things right now where carrier engineers are wanting to make it a brittle test instead of addressing things like repairability.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, well, where is this coming from? And it's very odd.
Well, I did it the last 12 times.
Yeah. Well, and it's like we have, I'm still perplexed by this, because I see somebody who I'm aware of, they were brought in and had a repairability assessment done in accordance with the methodologies that were done through the academy. And their report was, it was a brittle test. And I'm like, what's going on here? And it's just kind of strange, but there's definitely an echo chamber that seems to come into play. And it's kind of hard, because you want to talk to people and you want to help them go, there's more to the story. But you have to have someone who's willing to hear that there's more to the story. But a lot of these folks, they're told you can't talk to anybody. Don't talk to the insured. Don't talk to the PA. Don't talk to anybody else that's there. And so the opportunity to have that engagement, have that meaningful conversation is gone. And so
isn't that the whole idea? For forensic, to me, means investigation.
Yes.
Like you dig every stone, every piece of paper, everybody in the world that was a part of that equation, you should do some research on, right?
Yeah, ASCE and NAFE, and they all have a definition, and that basically is an investigation in support of legal. I'm butchering the exact definition.
Well, we are not attorneys, by the way.
I have it in my reports, but I mean, we actually do use that definition. But you're right; it's investigating, and it should be a much more involved, much more elaborate discussion. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's not happening now, and it's kind of sad.
Are you finding that is the other side just not trained in this, or are they not given the latitude, or is it both, or is it comfortability, or I mean, let's be honest, there's bias there, right? Right?
Well, so bias is willful.
Ooh.
And is it willful on the part of that guy in the field? And I don't know that we can say that it's willful. But I do think that there is a lot of an issue with not having enough experience, not having a diverse enough experience and a broad enough perspective to understand really what's going on. If you have a situation where you're brought in, you're taught something in a very tight box, you have no communication with outside engineers because you basically work remotely, and so your only involvement is with people that are following that same thing.
And
your
mentors are that.
Yeah, and you're not really going to get that outside view that might help, round out what you understand. It might not change what you believe, it may not change what you understand, but you at least understand where they're coming from. What makes a lot of value for me is I have worked for the carriers. I know how they think,
and you should, by the way, you should work for everybody.
Yeah, and as I tell people this. My phone rings regardless of who calls me. And I do have some defense attorneys that will call me on very specific cases. I don't often have insurance companies call me. If they want to, they can, and they're going to get the same information I would give Jack or any attorney or anybody else. And if you talk to any of my clients that I've worked with for very long, including you guys have brought me stuff and I've looked at it and gone, it's not here. And,
Yeah,
we just go,
and I'm like, Chad, are you sure? Because this is a really big claim. No, and dude, honestly, that's what I want, bro. I want my employees, my staff, my vendors to tell me no, because dude, I'm a paternal optimistic, right? That's what we do. And at the same time though, if it's yes, I want that thing ironclad. So when we drag you up on the stand, which is going to happen, your opinions are based in facts, right? And all these other things, and it's very frustrating. And I think what happens though is our side of the industry gets lazy about letting the insurance companies dictate the claim, and that's not how it's supposed to work. The insured is supposed to present the claim to the carrier with all the facts, data, analysis behind it. We are there to prove the loss, and a lot of PA firms, attorneys, roofing companies, they're there to manage the claim, not to run the claim. There's a difference there, and that's super frustrating. And a lot of it's cash flow, and a lot of it is not knowing, being unprofessional, not enough training, all that stuff, bro. All of it.
We have a lot of issues in the industry where people don't know what their sandbox is, and they want to get into someone else's adjoining sandbox. And I know why they want to do it. They want to help somebody. They're trying to help them. And I think that the motivation is probably good,
sure,
but it's the unintended consequences of it. And it's like, if you're a contractor, you know how to fix things. Yeah. You know how to estimate that. That is your strongest suit. That is where you are the strongest person you can be. That's where you need to be. You can take pictures and you can document what you saw and say, here's what I saw. And if you do a thorough job in documenting it and you're the first one that's there 2 weeks after, a week after, yeah, then later on, if we need to get involved, that's worth its weight in gold, because that's much more contemporaneous information that we can use. But don't try to be an engineer. Don't try to be a PA.
Or a PA or an attorney.
Or a lawyer.
Yeah.
But do those things that you're there. Do those things that you're really good at and really great at. Because what will happen to you a lot of times if you go outside of that, if you unfortunately do have a case that goes legal, now in deposition, they're not talking about where you're strong. They're attacking you where you're weak, and they're trying to discredit you where you're weak. So for a contractor, stay in there. Do that thing that makes you really good at what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the problem has become everybody. So the well is so deep with claims. It's a deep, deep well. Everybody is trying to make a buck off the claim, right? Which I get. And some claims are there. The legitimate claims, we should all do our thing. But the problem is there's so much shit being thrown against the wall. It's making my life miserable. It's making your life miserable. But the problem is it's become so prevalent with, God, I started doing this in the early 90s, bro, and it's completely different. Nobody was knocking doors. There was all these, not these huge storm chasing firms and attorneys and PAs, and it's just become a different model, which is good and bad because people are actually getting alerted that there are claims, but at the same time, there's a lot of shitty claims getting presented to the carrier, and they get to the point they're reactive, and then they've had enough. They've had enough, and that makes us all look bad. So part of the thing that we're trying to do, and you're trying to do, is raise the bar and all this stuff, and just make it. If it's a claim, it's a claim, right?
Yeah. If the facts are there, the evidence is there, the damage is there, then present it. Objectively, honestly, present it. If it's not, then step away. There's other things to do.
How do you feel about when you're on our claim and you write your report, and there's another engineer from another firm that we brought in by the carrier? I really encourage you guys to communicate between each other, and that very rarely happens. And it's super frustrating because you're talking engineerese, and I'm not an engineer, man, right? Why isn't there more rapport? When I say sides, I mean, to me, you guys are all the same thing. Your stamp is your stamp is your stamp. Their stamp is. You should be able to sit down like licensed professional engineers, and at the end of the day, make not coverage determination, but a determination on what the hell it actually is. And it's super frustrating when engineers won't do that. Why is that?
Well, a lot of it is that the carrier, the ones that work for the carriers, and I hate to say carrier side, but that's the way it oftentimes occurs in language.
It's becoming a thing.
A lot of times they are taught not to talk because if they say something, it'll be used against them later. And so they're taught not to communicate. They're taught not to do that. And a lot of times it's like you can get, hi, my name is, hey, what about the weather? What about happened in the football game last weekend? That's about it. They won't really talk about anything else. And so that's not facilitating communication. And there could be plenty of reasons as to why that occurs. But it's sad, but it does occur. And then I know in my situation that a lot of times when I go to site, I've been around some of these engineers before, and I have thoroughly cleaned the clock on them. And so they don't even want to talk to me. And so that becomes part of it. And it's like, maybe we need to look at how we can improve and make things better. If I get a rebuttal on one of my reports, I look at it and I go, is there anything of substance here? Is there something I should be doing differently? Is there something that I left open? Sure. And I'm always looking at continually trying to improve the stuff that I work with. You can ask any of the people who work for me, they can tell you that I'm constantly revising my templates. I'm constantly updating and constantly trying to make things we do better. We already are one of the strongest engineering reports in the country. But if there's something that we can do better, we do. And it's sad to me that we don't have that communication. I wish we did.
Don't you guys take some sort of like oath when you become like a real engineer? You're supposed to be unbiased with stuff. Isn't that supposed to be a thing?
Well, we have. I mean, it's not an oath per se, like the doctor's ceremony.
Well, it should be. Let's start working on that, Chad.
It's an interesting idea. It is an interesting idea. But we do have canons, and we do have a lot of regulations that are governing us by our states.
Sure.
And the National Society of Professional Engineers, NSPE, has its canons. And they are bounding on our members, but they're not binding on non-members. But they are the foundation that is what underlies the engineering profession, and what commonly gets adopted into the rules and regulations on the state level.
Like minimum standards for...
Yeah.
So are there different rules and regs for each state?
Yes.
Like what? Give me an example.
Different
ethical rules?
The ethical rules are all the same flavor, but they may change the phrasing. And different states have different rules on exactly...
Can you give me like an example? That seems odd to me.
Nothing that really jumps out at me because they've all, as I say, they all seem consistent, but it may be the way they phrase something and the way they word something. But the standards are pretty much the same. Objectivity is there. Honesty is there. Transparency is there. At the end of the day, the engineering profession is written in blood. We exist because people died. We exist because people got hurt. I mean, literally one of the first reasons why professional engineering exists is a school blew up in Texas because it got flooded with natural gas before they put deodorants in it. And
well, look at the thing in Florida with the building collapse.
Yeah. Right? I mean, that's why we exist. Engineers exist, and our first reason to exist is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public.
What was the first engineering degree offered? Do you even know? Or where was
I don't know when the first engineering degree is. I think it was Wyoming was the first one that had licensure.
You're kidding me.
And then I think Texas was second.
Texas makes sense.
That was 100 plus years ago. I don't remember the exact time frame. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, we exist because things happen. Bad stuff happens. And the entire reason why we exist as engineers is to stop bad stuff from happening. And sometimes I see that engineers working in forensics lose sight of that. They get into I want to go into the cause and the origin. And it's like, but you still at the end of the day have that obligation to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public. And if we're making recommendations, we should be stepping back and going, does this actually protect the public? Depending on what state you're in, you may also have a responsibility to safeguard property. And so if you're thinking about that and going, I'm making recommendations, is this going to work? Is this going to take care of the property owner? Or is this going to leave this open so the owner's going to have another problem in 2 months? And now they've got water leaking in the building because the repair was done poorly.
Right.
A lot of my brothers and sisters lose track of that.
It's interesting, man. This is pretty cool stuff because it's such an in-depth thing that I don't think people understand that there is some humanity involved in this stuff, man. Like you guys can, if it's not, we see it all the time. If this stuff's not right and not covered right, it affects their number one, their checkbook, and their families and everything else. So
yeah, we have problems where a building doesn't get repaired correctly. They do a half-assed repair.
Yeah.
And the building leaks. Now you've got structural damage to the building because the material components are corroding and deteriorating. Now you've got mold in the building. Now you've got people getting sick in the building. You've got a lot of problems that are happening because of that. And it's like, but we just did the repair and it was what was there. And it's like, but you didn't see the consequences of your repair mechanism.
So if you write a report, are you liable for that report? If somebody follows let's say you write a scope of damages, right? You do that in your report? And you'll say, hey.
If requested, yes.
Okay. And then if the contractor follows your stuff, identically and it's wrong, are you liable for that with your
So
liability
we do a
insurance?
conceptual scope of repairs, and we go, here's what needs to be done.
Okay.
We aren't designing the scope of repairs. Now, there are times where design services need to be done, but we do try to make sure that we're thorough and broad enough that we are there. Liability is a legal question, and I'll stay away from
You have insurance, right? Yeah, you have.
Yes, we do carry,
Okay.
and we have to. But
Interesting. Yeah.
we do consider that, if there's a problem, did we take it from a defendable position? Do we have that information in there? Again, the legal liability, that's a legal question.
Sure.
I'll stay off of that
Once
one.
we're not attorneys.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney. But we do think about that. And I think that does get lost a lot of times is people don't think about that consequence.
There's a lot of stuff. You're on Facebook, man. Not as much as me, because no one in the world is on Facebook as much as me. About filing complaints against engineers. Man, we don't do it, bro. My firm does not do it. We don't file complaints against the Department of Insurances, right? And I'll tell you why. I have a huge target on my back, bro. I have a huge target on our back, my firm's back, because we are out there, we are promoting, and we are pro-insured, and we are leading that parade. We got the flags waving, and a lot of PAs, a lot of other roofing companies, whatever. I see all the time, man. Hey, file these complaints against these engineers. File these complaints. We don't do that as a practice. I can see, I guess, and I'm torn because there's some egregious shit we see, bro, as you do too, and they should be held liable. But how do you feel about that? I mean, I see both sides. I don't think it's great because at the end of the day, a shitty engineer report actually helps us more than it people. We actually don't mind that as a firm because my guys are great. Number one, we bring you in to tear it apart. We just tear it apart. We always end up in the good side of bad. But these complaints getting filed against these engineers, how do you ethically feel about that as an engineer?
That's a loaded question.
Thank you.
So let me preface this. I love being an engineer. I never intended to be an engineer. It's just where God put me to be.
Okay. What do you think you were going to do?
I intended to go in the military, and I intended to do 20 years.
Shit.
That's what I intended to do.
What part of the military?
Originally, I went into a training program for the U.S. Army, and I broke my skull. And that was in PQ back in 1995.
You broke your skull?
Yeah.
That's podcast number 2, ladies and gentlemen. How Chad broke his skull.
It was in training, and so that was not an avenue open to me. So I went to college, and when I started in college, I was political science. Then I was economics. Then I went into engineering school.
I have a 2.0 political science degree from Indiana University. Thank you very much.
So yeah, it's God put me where God intended for me to be.
Okay.
And sometimes I wonder why, but that's what He had in store for me. So that's where I am. So when you talk about that, I look at reports and I go, is it inexperience? Is it malice?
Yeah.
And I make a difference. If it's a matter of someone genuinely gave a report based on what they believe to be true, that's a question of competence. That's a question for the courts.
Training,
Yeah.
Right?
Now, if it's something where someone says, I gave you a book of data and they completely ignored it or they completely misrepresented it, that to me is something different.
Okay.
But
can you distinguish the two?
So if I have a situation where someone gets a one-sheet wonder report and they say, well, there was no hail, and here's an entire forensic meteorology report that's 200 pages long that delineates everything that shows that there was a storm, and they ignore the weather report and they go, my one-sheet wonder, it doesn't show that. That to me is a problem. If they come in and they go, my repair recommendation is based on the fact I see on a mod bit roof fractures at a certain rate, and they don't look into the fact that they've got a multiple layer system, they've got multiple sets of water in there, they've got all these other things going on that would be something that would limit its overall feasibility of repair, and they ignore that data, that to me is where there's a problem. That's unethical. Now, on a competency issue,
so you would think a complaint is valid for that?
I think that there are times where that is valid.
Okay.
And there are a couple of times a year where I will tell a client, you need to think about this, you need to pray about this, and then if you still feel that way, then that's what you need to do, but you need to present that there was information that was excluded and ignored. There is one other situation, and that is when you send an engineer into a state to do a job where they're not licensed.
I agree with that.
I have situations where firms will send a guy in to do an investigation. He's not licensed there, and then miraculously some office manager or somebody else is actually the one signing the report. And it's like, but how did that guy actually have responsible charge? How did the person who's actually signing that report actually have that authority? And so that's really, one of those things where I have questions.
Because the chances of him actually doing in-depth analysis of those photos and are very slim. He's probably stamping it and moving it along. Right? And that's how it works. It's McDonald's sometimes. Right?
It certainly can be.
Sure.
I don't have necessarily evidence to say it is or it isn't, but I certainly can see that happening.
Okay.
And so if you're seeing circumstances like that, then I think those are things that need to be brought to the board's attention. And, the thing about it is the boards are looking for material fact. They're not looking for two engineers disagree. They're looking at, is there evidence that was excluded? Is there something flagrant like that? Not two experts disagreed, because they'll say that's the realm of the courts.
So that's what happens once again on Facebook. Bad faith, bad faith, bad faith. It takes so much to prove bad faith. It's such an overused term, and that's another great example of that. Disagreeing isn't bad faith. All right? Bad faith is a whole different lineage of stuff. And once again, disagreeing is cool, and we get that. But, there needs to be that. Number one, we hire you because you're stamped, bro, and your experience, right? So my whole thing is if we end up going to court and you're on the stand, you're going to blow it away because here's what it is, man, right? And that's what I think people lose sight of. It's every claim has an engineer now. It's getting out of hand. If I had to do all over again, I would probably go to Purdue and go to engineering school and do that and just get my little stamp. But it's getting, my biggest thing, Chad, is they're weaponizing your industry, bro. And it sucks for you, and it sucks for the dudes on the other side, because they have families and they have kids and they have a stamp and they busted their ass at Purdue or Oklahoma or wherever the hell they went to get that. And a lot of them, I'm assuming, like our industry, 90% of the guys are good people, and they want to do a good job.
I think the bulk of the people in the industry are good people. I can tell you in all sincerity, I live in fear of one day getting a phone call from a good, honest engineer that has woken up and realized what the damage he's done and is suicidal. I actually have processes in place and people that I know that I can call and get on a conference call 24 hours a day if I get that call. And I have one who is a crisis counselor.
Holy shit.
That should I get that call, I can call her and bring her into this conversation, because we've had talked about this a lot, and we are very concerned because a lot of people, when they do start to understand and they start to see the broader part of it, they wake up and they go, what the hell am I doing? And, a lot of people that go into forensics, they have kind of a lot of different career paths. A lot of them live there short term, and they don't ever stay around long enough to really get an understanding of what's really going on. But then there are those that finally wake up and realize, and they go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, there's some that are on, that would be considered on the owner's side that play fast and loose too. And they realize that they're making mistakes, and they've got to wake up and realize at the end of the day, it's not this life. It's outside of this life, what we face in that reality.
Yeah.
And so, you can't just look at what's happening today. You got to think about, how am I going to be in court? What's going to happen to me when I'm in depot? What's going to happen there? What happens ultimately when I'm standing before God and I have to account? And, if I'm not being honest now, then that's going to be a liability I have beyond this life. And
it's such a, once again, it's weaponized, because hey man, you need to make X amount of dollars to support your family, and you're working for XYZ, we can name them, Donan or JS Held. There's a plethora of them out there that are not great. U.S. Forensics, how they're still in business, by the way, after the bullshit. You can just post this. Every time I get a claim from State Farm and U.S. Forensics is on it, you know what I do, bro? I download the YouTube video of them, the dude going to prison for the bullshit they did in New York, and I send it back to the State Farm guy. I'm like, y'all need to send somebody else, because that's horse shit. If you want to die on that hill, I'll do that right now, because that is egregious behavior. It really is, man.
Well, I've seen what was alleged with JSL, or excuse me, U.S. Forensics. Excuse me, I apologize for that.
Oh, good.
I've seen what's been alleged against various firms over the years. I don't like it. It makes me sick to see those things happen. It should not have occurred. Oh. I don't like it at all. I want to see our profession get better. I want to see our profession expand in an honest direction. as I mentioned, the National Academy of Forensic Engineers, that is the one organization that I know of that actually has training for forensic engineers.
Okay.
And I think that being there, being able to see and talk and deal with that, and quite honestly, there's a lot of the guys that are there that are quite old, and maybe they're not practicing now, but they're a wealth of knowledge.
Do they have all this stuff? Yes.
Yeah, they're a wealth of experience,
Yes.
they're a wealth of knowledge. And there's some other stuff that's out there. I serve on the ASE Forensic Practice Committee. We have a meeting once a month, and it's interesting to just go sit on that and just talk about what's going on in the industry.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us share the same concerns. A lot of us share that desire to make it better.
No, that stuff you're talking about, are people from quote unquote both sides on that part of that program?
So for ASC, yes.
Okay.
We have Forensic Congress, and we have Forensic Practice, and there's an entire division within the American Society of Civil Engineers for that. But that deals with those of us who basically primarily deal with property.
Yeah.
But NAFI is all kinds of forensic engineers, from electrical to mechanical. One of the engineers that was very heavily involved in that tourist sub that broke near the Titanic was one of our fellows. And he's
Speaking of life or death shit, right?
Yeah. And he's somebody I pick up the phone and I call and talk to him when I need to. And that's one of the things that's really great about the academy is most of us have a very good camaraderie, and we do pick up and talk to people. And so
you guys geek out on engineering stuff. That's what you're.
It's fun.
So, but there's not a lot of carrier guys involved in
There's a few. Out of a room that's 75, I might see 5.
Damn.
But
that's a problem, man. Right.
But it is kind of sad. But the biggest thing for a lot of our engineers out there, and if anybody's listening, this is an engineer, I don't care who you work for.
Yeah.
Don't just dismiss what the other side says. Don't dismiss what the other people are saying. Actually try to understand why are they saying it. Because I've read God only knows how many reports. I've been involved in research, and doing the research, the stuff we learn is unreal.
Yeah.
And the understanding we have from that is very different. And I would encourage everybody, just have that conversation, reach out, read the documents with scrutiny. Don't look for what benefits your side or benefits the position you want, but read the documents that you're getting critically and really ask, does this actually mean what it says? And look at the content of the document and look at the conclusions. Does the content match the conclusions? A lot of times it doesn't. And then you start to go, what's going on here? And if you can do that, you can make yourself a much more valuable engineer.
Well, that's the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
So I have one more question, and then we'll get to the final. Why is it important? So I struggle with this. A lot of engineers want to see the policy. I'm not sure. But, I get it, but I don't know why you would need that. Can you explain why, or is it even relative to? Because I personally I don't think I want to show you that because I don't want to have anything that shouldn't matter. Should it, or am I missing the boat on that?
It's a double-edged sword.
Okay.
We're not public adjusters. We're not lawyers. We're not interpreting policy. However, sometimes there are provisions of the policy that affect questions that are being asked of us.
Can you name one a couple? Because
we have people that will bring in functional damage and cosmetic damage, and that's an entire podcast on its own.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Especially if you start studying the history of that, you'll start pulling your hair out and you'll start going, "This is just
nonsense."
Well, but you'll have a situation where someone will say, "My definition of functional damage is X, Y, or Z."
Okay,
and then the adjuster will say, "Well, the engineer determined that it's not functional." Well, the problem of it is, and I'm not making this call, but I am aware of what's going on around me. That policy didn't have any reference to functional or cosmetic at all. But the claim got turned down because the engineer said it was there. Or there's specific definitions in it.
They're overstepping their...
But they're applying a definition they shouldn't be applying.
Right.
And so there's other ways of addressing that. But sometimes it's a matter of there'll be a definition that is very specific about something, whether it's covered or not. And ultimately, the party that's retaining us needs to know whether those certain circumstances were met or not.
So mostly for definitions.
Yeah, and that's where I'm looking at it is for definitions. But I'm not doing that. But usually I'm asking the party, is there a definition for this? Is there an explanation for this?
Okay.
But I don't want to see the entire policy. I don't want to sit and read 600 pages of a policy.
That's not fun.
But if there are specific parameters that we need to be aware of, that's what we need to know.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because every policy is different. It's getting more... The exclusions and the cosmetic stuff is getting more in depth. So it used to be one paragraph. Now it's and the more we fight from our side, the more in depth it's going to be, which I get because insurance companies are reactive, not proactive, which is fine. I get that. So, all right, we're going to wind this thing up, dude. It's already been 45 minutes. I can go on for hours on this shit. So if I give Chad Williams the magic wand and you can wave it over our industry, what is one thing you get one wish, bro. You get one magic wand wave. What's one thing is this industry being the insurance claims industry? What's one thing you could change that you think would be entirely benefit, not just to our side, but the entire, well, for the insureds at the end of the day?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Yep.
I think a lot of it is step back and realize there's more to this life.
Okay.
And realize the consequences are more than just what's going on in front of you today. Because it's very easy to become focused on this little situation in front of you and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, we all get caught in the daily drama of whatever, and we all get, wound up, excited. Like, I go home, my wife's like, what are you so wound up about? I'm like, well, she goes, that's every day of your life, bro. I'm like, yeah, that's true. So it's stuff like it is, a lot of us, you're including this. We're very passionate about the industry in general, and there's a lot of problems in the industry on both sides. And I'm a huge advocate. Until we get our shit cleaned up, it ain't gonna matter. Because until we get serious about our side and start everybody doing the right thing and self-policing ourselves, engineers, PAs, whatever that is, man, and getting rid of some of the people that should no business be in this industry, the insurance company is going to keep running us over, which is what's happening because they have no respect for us. They really don't. And I don't think some of it's deserved, unfortunately, right? So that's just my little soapbox for the day. But Chad, thank you for coming in. Thank you for being such a positive influence in the industry. I walked in and you were talking to two of my younger PAs at the table, just going over shit, man. And that's the kind of stuff it's going to take us older, and I say because we're getting up there, passing our brains out to these younger generation, because it's going to get harder and more difficult. But the more information we can give these guys, just honest, good stuff, that the industry is going to be better for it. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you do for my PA firm. Thanks for coming to Denver. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.